Alright, so what does it look like to be disabled? Writing a book for 14 years. All these were just a laptop from 2010, 2013. This little one is the one I edited on. I eventually got a job. This is about 300 pages. It's a decade old. Very few of this actually ended up staying. Mostly got all rewritten. About 100,000 words got removed. But, a decade ago, when I was in the hospital, I would use that in my pillow and calm me down at night, just to have it under my head. And if you haven't guessed by that, this is self-published, and it had to be. It's a memoir that, in a genre that is controlled by 80 to 90% of the market is, people whose lives are already known. And, there's nowhere to begin with this, because my first memories were headaches as a toddler. I grew up with them as a child. So the real turning point began at the age of 15. Started getting them every day. Started moving into a life in the hospital. I had to leave high school to go to a different high school. They were supposed to give me disability services. They didn't. I had to be self-educated from there on. So this began in the year 2000, and the first 5 years was a huge shock. I would wake up and my mouth would be black with bile. Could barely move. I was experimented on with medications constantly, which I didn't have a whole lot of control over taking. My first surgery came in 2005, at the age of 20. It's a PFO heart closure, experimental. I was the first person in the United States they allowed it for migraines. Didn't work. So, as I'm editing, I should probably explain why they thought the hole in the heart, had any significance. People were getting the hole closed. 1 out of 4 people have this hole in their heart. It's supposed to close when you're born. But people were getting closed for other reasons, for stroke, reported less migraines. And the hypothesis they had was that the blood bypasses the lungs, and that the first place the unoxygenated blood goes is straight up into the head, and that was thought to be the trigger, the perturbation towards causing the event. So my second surgery was in 2008. It was nerve decompression, orbital, temporal, both locations, and then a year later it was occipital, and they did the back. It didn't work. The only information I got was from the surgeon when he looked in the nerve there. He said it had been pinched so hard, but the muscle had been pushed up against the bone. He told me he had never seen that. So the real inflection point became in the year 2010, and because that was the year I had a suicide pact with myself. I told myself I'd do a single decade, having them every day, and I was going to shoot myself in the heart, donate my brain. I didn't. And my grandmother, she told me I should write about my life. And then when she from her it was like being given a quest by an elder, because she was unique. Then she passed away, and then I held on to it. So the thing that is difficult now is that it's over. And the thing about writing a book for 14 years is that putting it down, stopping, is kind of a challenge. And there are new challenges because my memories aren't a very big surprise to me. And now that I'm getting feedback from people who've read this, I'm starting to understand just how unsettling it is. Not just in what happened to me, the traumas, but also the way I wrote it. I approached it from the stance of creative nonfiction. And I had to tell someone the pain made me write it the way I did, in a unique way. And I had to end it on something that didn't have anything to do with my health. Otherwise it would have felt like genetic determinism. So this has a lot of meaning. This is a headache chart. First headache version of this I made for the physicians, neurologists at the Mayo Clinic. They were kind of confused by it. But the basic is that the 1 to 10 pain scale is on the left, on the y-axis, and the x-axis is this property of the itch, where it's something you want to scratch. It's an irritant. And so each flower is a different type of headache that I get. So classical migraine is up here, sharp, dull, excessive sleep headache, abdominal migraine, which is just significant nausea with vertigo and vestibular problems, lack of sleep headache. Vacuum headache is the one that's the hardest to explain, because it feels like a negative pressure. It feels like it's like when you take all the air out of a Coke can, it just sort of collapses internally, whereas with other headaches it feels like your head's being crushed from the outside. Throbbing, radiating. Charm headache is a hard one to explain. It can come on suddenly. I feel it in my eyes. My eyes just feel like they've been stabbed. My face locks up, and it feels like my face is pushed into lava, and like sort of, it would happen now and then while writing, and there's a few times I would burst a blood vessel in my nose, and I'd bled all over my laptop. A little asterisk is in the book for when those events happened. So festering migraine is the migraine where you really want to stab yourself in the head, and that, to a lot of people who don't understand that sounds really clinical, but it's a well-known symptom of just your head feels like a sheath for when you put a knife in there. And this is the worst one. This is a fever headache, and the problem with it is that it lasts for a very long time. Doesn't respond to medications like the other ones do. And it's just a clamping heat that just lasts for 72 hours, 4 or 5 days straight. And it just, your thoughts boil. And this is my left eye, which is always the worst. So as for writing with all of these, in my life, in the day-to-day, it shaped, years later when I would go back and I'd edit, I'd be able to tell what type of headache I had. just by the way I constructed the sentence. The intensity, the emotion. And, that's very evident in the very beginning of the book, in the prologue. It was a difficult time, and I didn't pull my punches with my words. I was very honest and direct. It can be jarring. So after initially posting this video, I went back and checked my Goodreads and noticed I got review bound. Technically, that's a rating. There's no profile, there's no indication who did it. They didn't say anything. They just clicked it. Part of a self-published support group of a lot of people who have to deal with this. No indication they read anything. We can often tell because of our books sold. But, with my case, it's a life of disability. I don't know why they're doing this or what's upsetting them other than the fact that my life is pretty difficult. So the ending is not so jarring, but I read an article recently on chronic pain, and a quote stuck out to me. It said, because it's everywhere, it's nowhere. And it's kind of alarming because it inhibits awareness, inhibits research and understanding.